everybody. Welcome to another episode of Talk, Walk, and Dance Dementia.
Dementia.
We two sisters are here to share and explore with you about the path of caretaking, caregiving, and sharing with those who have dementia. Today's subject is going to be to question or not to question. That is the question. And what we wanted to talk about and explore with you was something that we learned through all the different books we read. And Denise went to a number of seminars. And of course, we've all watched many, many videos on YouTube and other places. But the concept of when you are communicating and talking with someone with dementia, it is best not to ask any questions, is what some of the sources have said. And Denise has also some experience where there are certain kinds of questions you can ask. And the reason we say this, and then I'll turn it over to Denise, is that when you're living in present moment consciousness, then we don't want to trigger anxiety or stress in the person living with the dementia by asking them questions that they don't know the answer to. And I can't tell you how many times I saw my mom just sort of from her old confident self just give an answer that was like totally not true at all. And she was never a liar. But because she was just in answer mode when a question would just be thrown at her, she would just answer. And she wasn't thinking I'm lying or anything, but it wasn't a truthful response because the person asking her the question had no idea that my mom was living in the now of the zone of dementia. So it's very, very important we don't give them extra stress by asking them things that they can't answer. Just like if you asked me how to do brain surgery, it would stress me out. At the time, I cried my eyes out when my husband asked me to get all our taxes prepared, and I thought I had to do all the tax work as well. I mean, anyway, we won't digress there. We're still married after 36 years. It worked out fine. Okay, Denise, so I'm turning it over to you about, I had asked you, you had mentioned in a former episode about you can ask questions of what, who, and that. But I said I had heard not to ask any questions. So can you tell us the difference? Because there are sometimes when you can ask
Yeah.
questions if you're in the now. So I turned it over to Denise.
Well, that's really, really a tough question because some people say no question, no, don't ask them anything. And then I've been to other seminars where they say lie to them, which I don't agree with. And then other seminars I've been to, they say, yes, you can ask questions. You can ask certain questions, but other questions, don't ask them. So what do you ask them, right?
Yeah.
So I think it has to come with the powers of observation. And number one, having the intention of connecting first. So you connect with the person first in the best way you know how, and sometimes it's nonverbal. So sometimes it's observing the situation. Now, I come from a background of being a dog trainer. So when you're with an animal, the first thing you do is you want them to feel comfortable with you and you want to see where they're at. Are they going to be friendly? Are they, what's their body language telling you? So first I go with nonverbal and I go with what the person looks, how they're feeling. Are they pacing back and forth? Are they,
Mm-hmm.
are they, are they intense, like moving around and just like this? Or are they just sitting contently looking at something? I mean, so you have to match them in a nonverbal way at first. Now, when it comes to questions, I think you can ask questions, but it has to be the right questions.
Mm.
So if you ask the wrong questions, then you should never ask questions.
Right.
So I can see where some publications say don't ask questions. If you're going to ask the wrong questions, then don't ask questions. What do I mean by that? I mean, the most important thing is to, number one, honor the person in front of you. The best way to do that is to stay in present time consciousness. So only ask questions that have to do, and we talked about this in another episode, is that have to do with present time consciousness, talking about what you're seeing physically. If you can ask the proper questions in present time consciousness, then you can more or less match the emotion that the person's feeling. If they're in a dreamy state, you can match them with a dreamy state. If they're excited, you can be excited about something. And if they act like they don't want to talk to you, then don't talk to them. Really, it's common sense. Be with them in silence. There are some people that you just need to be with in silence. I want to give you an example of how people can be misread. I was at a memory care unit a while back, there are some great places that people can stay. I'm not saying they're all bad. My grandmother was in an amazing nursing home where people used great communication, and she had a wonderful experience. So there's some really great ones. This one is probably a really great one too. But what I observed was something really interesting with the staff is that they had a musical therapist coming into the memory care unit, and some people were singing, some people were isolated and not wanting to react. One lady sat and she was unable to verbalize a song. She was unable to sing, and she sat and she went ah! And she was doing that, and it was observed by the staff as that she was bothering people. And there's another time when she smiled. She went, ah! Like she was enjoying it. So for me, I mean, I didn't know her, but I was there for at least an hour and a half or 2 hours. I noticed that the staff got really nervous because this woman was not making normal sounds, but that even though she seemed happy, in my opinion, she was enjoying music and trying to just express herself. But they removed her from the situation because, in their observation of her, was that anyway, it was just an interesting observation that she was not having a good time, even though she looked like she was having a good time to me. And so sometimes we can think someone is thinking something and we can just remove them from a situation, or we could talk over them. Sometimes professionals will talk over people that they don't understand without taking the time to understand someone. I don't know if that's making sense.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
you went into that. You said your first step was observing and trying to again dance with them as to the cues that they would be giving, and perhaps these people were misreading the cues that this woman was giving while she herself was trying to enjoy the music. And so that's a good tangent, because what Denise is saying is that at first you have to see what is the vibe of what's happening with the person that you're interacting with. So let's get back to the questioning. The
Yeah.
questioning is like, and I did with mom, I tried both not asking any questions, and then I tiptoed into the question realm. And it worked great. Like when we are, mom used to love to sit on Denise's deck, and she would just look at the trees, and she could sit there for hours. I said she was like a yogi meditating on nature. It was amazing to see how happy she was. So then I could come out and say, isn't it beautiful? Aren't the trees just amazing? What do you love about that tree? I could say that, and then she'd say, it moves, or something so simple.
Yeah.
So those questions in the present now were fine, but we have to, Denise and I, disclaimer, or how would you say it? Is that the word? Anyway, when you reveal something, is that we've had training as performers, actors, and singers. And actually, she's a chiropractor. I haven't even mentioned that. She's a healer and an amazing nutritionist. And I'm a music teacher and music arranger and things like that. So anyway, we were able to take the cues of mom and then to take these seminars and books that talked about questioning and not questioning, and just to try them and to see it really was like magic to not ask questions, but to do cue giving and prompting in the moment by being sensitive, like Denise said, to the vibe of what was being expressed. And I'll say one more thing about silence. Towards the end of mom's life, she didn't speak much, but she was still so perceptive. And we found that she liked signing.
She liked
And
signing.
Denise would say, thumbs up, thumbs down. And mom would go, or she'd go, and then sometimes she'd go,
She communicated fully into the very end. Even when she wasn't saying many words, she communicated fully up until even her last day. She was communicating with us.
Oh my God.
The entire time.
Yes.
And it's because we left a space for it. We left a space for it, and we honored her higher self. And it's back to episode 1, is that the spirit runs the brain. There is an intelligence within us that is more than any of us could ever imagine. All the scientists in the world, the greatest scientists in the world, could never tell you exactly what your gallbladder is doing at this moment. They could say, well, the gallbladder does this, does that, the liver does this and that. But what's it doing at this very same moment? But the intelligence that runs the brain knows that. So there is still, even though you may think the person can't remember what they ate for dinner 2 hours ago, there is a magnificent intelligence that is running the brain and is running every part of the body. So if you enter into your communication with the person knowing that they are an amazing person that's just having an experience that may be limiting, but that there is an unlimited part of them, they will surprise you every time, because that part of you that acknowledges that is acknowledging that part of them, and that part of them will open up things for you to see and will show you that there's still a lot going on inside them up
I
until their
love
last
that.
breath. So just realize that with that intention, and it doesn't matter if you're saying what, when, why questions, or you're not saying any questions at all. Maybe everyone's right who writes these books. Maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you should. But if you enter into it knowing that the higher self in you is appealing to the higher self in them,
Mhm.
and that God's in control of running all this stuff anyway, that miracles can happen, and they do. They happen all the time. With that,
I think that's a closer for right now.
we'll talk to you later. Thank you.
That was some
Thank you.
answers to those questions.
Maybe it was. Oh, yes.
So,
Salute.
and then
And then that's how Mama used to greet us and say goodbye to us every
ta
day.
ta.
Ta ta.